It wasn't just mere trolling. It wasn't just a joke. It is now officially real. Donald Trump has taken a strong stance and a serious posture against Canada and actually annexing us to be a part of the United States of America. He is not kidding. This is not a joke. He did his press conference down today in Mara Lago. Lots of questions were asked of him. And he, in no uncertain terms, said, no, it's definitely on the table. Don't care what Poilievre says. Trudeau's gone. We need to get this done. And I will use economic force, if necessary, to make this happen. In that same speech, he talked about how Denmark needs to relinquish Greenland for their national security purposes. And it is getting wild. In some ways, not surprised, but this is what I was talking about. Elections have consequences, right? You voted for Trudeau and continued voting him in on a minority basis because it made you feel good. Because he did things that, he said the right things. He appealed to your delicate sensibilities as a liberal voter. And because of his lack of leadership and his lack of focus, he has opened Canada up to what we're seeing currently. We were always susceptible to something like this happening. I remember having these conversations as a kid with adults about, would America ever try to take us over? Because they could do it like this, no problem. They have the best military in the world. If they really wanted our resources, they could take it. I even recognized that as a 10-year-old kid, I could see that coming. We have the largest water resource, some of the largest oil reserves. We have some of the most desired resources in this country. What would happen if the right leader got into power in America and decided to just take it over? And that's what we are currently seeing now. I'm not blaming it all on Trudeau because Canada has taken their relationship with America for granted for generations at this point. They'll never do anything to us and we'll never do anything to them. So we never invested much in our military, never invested much in national security, and quite frankly, invited foreign interference into our elections. And now here we are. U.S. President-elect Donald Trump talks of using economic force to annex Canada. This show, no notes, all off the dome. It's happening as we speak. I thought I was done for the day. I finished that last video and then this popped up. And the impact of a weak leader like Trudeau is now having very real world consequences for Canada's sovereignty. U.S. President-elect Donald Trump said he would be willing to use economic force to convince Canada to agree to a political union with the United States, remarks that suggest he's serious about a subject Canadian officials have so far written off as a joke. He made the comments during a press conference in Florida on Tuesday after he was asked whether he was considering military force to acquire Canada. Mr. Trump ruled out military action, but then said he's considering economic force. He then proceeded to make his case for absorbing Canada, saying the country already depends on the United States for military protection. Our military is at their disposal, he said. Canada and the United States, that would really be something, he said. You could rid of that artificially drawn line, you take a look at what happens, and you can take a look at what that looks like, he said. In a modern reference to the 19th century American idea of manifest destiny, where some in the United States thought it was their right to expand across all of North America. Mr. Trump also tried to make the case that Canada has little leverage over the United States and list off the Canadian imports that he felt Americans could do without. From automobiles to lumber to dairy products, he said the United States doesn't need help defending in North America. It would also be much better for national security, Again, we basically protect Canada, he said. He said Canada wants to join the U.S. procurement plan for icebreakers, but he doesn't see the point. We're buying icebreakers and Canada wants to join us in the buying of icebreakers. I said, we don't really want to have a partner in the buying of icebreakers. We don't need a partner. So some of our major imports or exports, Trump is we don't really need that. And this is, again, one of the significant issues Canada's had in their national defense. We have some of the most coveted resources in the world and one of the biggest countries in the world. And we have never taken our security seriously. We've always taken our relationship with America for granted. And then we vote in idiots like Justin Trudeau who drive our economy through the ground to now. Yes, people are crying about the 25% tariffs. Economic force, he said. Could you imagine if we were at least in a stronger position to negotiate? Now, all you can hope is for mercy. That's all we can ask for now. There's very little we can really do back. As I said, that will have a massive impact on them. Sure, we can raise tariffs on them, but it's about who can bleed longest, and we cannot bleed longest. We are in so much trouble financially right now. Our economic outlook is bleak. We need a government that can stem the tide and figure this out. And this goes back to our point yesterday, why we take this back to the Governor General. Should avoid the request for proroguement, said no, we're going into Parliament now and allow the non-confidence vote to take place. It should have happened. We need a strong leader right now. The Liberals have no way of drumming it up. They can't. And we need someone who can step into the gap here. And quite frankly, I don't know if things are too far along to be able to even have anything to do about it. Trudeau's put us in such a hole that we are in such a position of weakness in this negotiation. Trump says we don't need their cars. You know, they make 20% of our cars. We don't need that. I'd rather make them in Detroit. We don't need their cars, he said. We don't need their lumber. We have massive fields of lumber. We don't need their lumber, he said. Adding later, we don't need their dairy products. We have more than they have. He has suggested he has lost patience supporting Canada. We've been good neighbors, but we can't do it forever, and it's a tremendous amount of money. So we are on our own. And Parliament has been prorogued for at least the next 3 months, and this is what we're staring at. Here are Trump's words for himself. We have a couple clips here.
Supporting a country, 200 billion plus a year. Our military is at their disposal. All of these other things, they should be a state. That's why I told Trudeau when he came down, I said, what would happen if we didn't do it? He said Canada would dissolve. Canada wouldn't be able to function. If we didn't take their 20% of our car market, you know, they send us hundreds of thousands of cars. They make a lot of money with that. They send us a lot of other things that we don't need. We don't need their cars. We don't need the other products. We don't need their milk. Why are we?
And then he goes on to talk about how he would acquire Canada.
If we were to work under the assumption that you're serious about making Canada 51st state of the United States, the leader of the Conservative Party in Canada said, under no circumstance will it ever be the 51st state.
Maybe he won't win, but maybe he will. I don't.
Point, you had suggested.
Listen, I don't care what he says.
But Sir Lopez, you said you were considering military force to acquire Panama and Greenland. Are you also considering military force to annex and acquire Canada?
No, economic force, because Canada and the United States, that would really be something. You get rid of that artificially drawn line, and you take a look at what that looks like, and it would also be much better for national security. Don't forget, we basically protect Canada. But here's the problem with Canada. So many friends up there. I love the Canadian people. They're great. But we're spending hundreds of billions a year to protect it.
Mr. President, if we were to work under the assumption that you're serious.
So you hear his tone there. This is, you know, we had to splice up and cut it just for the sake of time. But we get the idea of what he's talking about. We get where he's getting at. This is no longer him trolling. This is no longer jokes to really throw Trudeau off or to give him a hard time or get rid of his party. He said America first, and he meant it. And now we're seeing it. And there's a group of people in this country that believe that we should be annexed. We should join the United States. And others who are willing to fight back. We will see what happens here moving forward. As a Canadian, I want to keep our sovereignty. And I can acknowledge that this is going to be a personal statement. But those who voted Trudeau, those who have supported him, those who have propped him up in politics, and those who have supported him via voting, this is on you. 100%, it's on you. You fell for the flowery language, the beautiful hair, the empty statements, and said, yeah, this will be good for us. You said, like Trudeau has said, screw monetary policy. Don't think much about it. As long as I feel good about social causes that he actually didn't care about in the first place, as long as I feel good about those things, then let's vote him in. And now here we are 9 years later, a majority and 2 minority governments later, and now we're facing down the barrel of this. I'm hopeful that we can get things figured out, but I'll admit it's getting dicey. So we're going to be keeping an eye on this, seeing what's going on, and keeping you updated. Have yourselves a good one. Now I'm out.